everyone. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt something just happened like yesterday, but at the same time you have the feeling it has been a long time and you're in it and grinding through that? That's exactly the same feeling when I think about this pandemic that we are, working through. My name is Meerah Rajavel. I'm the CIO of Citrix. I want to share with you today some of the lessons that we have learned through the pandemic and the approaches we have taken today, how we are approaching work and our workforce, and also how we are looking at work and our workforce from a futuristic point of view. Our story probably is not very different than your story. I still remember very clearly. It was a Friday evening. Our CEO, David Hanschel, called me in an executive meeting, and we were in an executive discussion, and he said, hey, can we have all our employees working remotely starting on Monday? And it was like 10,000 plus employee. Can we flip the switch so we all can go from coming into office to being remote? I said, well, sure. Over the weekend, IT executed a bunch of, I call it like a day-long project to ensure our bandwidth is right, our connectivity is right, our security is right. Monday, we did actually have all the employees working remote. Quickly, we realized this is not about just a matter of days. It's not even a matter of weeks. Probably it's going to go longer. Immediately, we partnered with our HR organization to ensure the technology is going to work in favor for our employees to be productive regardless of where they are. We also want to make sure it's not just the technology, the environment is going to be productive for them, right? So in about 4 weeks' time, we executed a specific stipend or bonus that we gave people $1,000 regardless of where they are in the globe, and they can use it in a way they would like to use it to make themselves productive. If I kind of go back a year ago and I said, hey, work is not a place, it's just about outcomes, people would have laughed. When I said work, people probably thought about it's going into office, 8 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever it is. But the last 15 months, we all know work is not a place anymore. Work is about outcome and accomplishments. And for us to ensure we achieve the superior outcomes and the sense of accomplishment for individuals, we need to enable our folks to choose their environment for the type of work they need to do. The choice is a very important thing. I want to underline the word the environment. When we talk about environment is the space we create. Environment is the capabilities we provide. Environment is the emotions and the empathy that's being poured in. That's kind of making it all come together for people to be at your best. And the environment today has a lot been enabled through, when we talk about working remote, is through technology. However, we know technology can make life complicated, not just simple. I mean, the statistics we did conduct a study, and the statistics show very clearly, in a day, people are switching between 35 different applications. And to execute a simple workflow, people have to switch between 4 different, these are average numbers. Sometimes it's more than 10 applications. 20% of the time, think about it. I mean, if your workforce is spending 20% of their time searching for the data that they need to do their job, that's a colossal waste of time. I mean, personally, I can relate to some of this because, in fact, I do spend quite a bit of time looking for the data that I wanted to have for making my decisions, right? So it really comes down to the point. Adding to that complexity also is remembering the different passwords, the different user identities. And I have to say the sentiment here is the love or hate relationship with the passwords, right? I mean, today, if you look at the number one threat, the number one attack vector by the bad actors is identity theft. And for every CIO and CISO, their nightmare is, how do I ensure my workforce is safe? And how do I ensure their identity is protected? And at the same time, we are not letting them have simple enough passwords. The more complication you put, the more it takes for them to remember. They start recording it in places that are not safe. So one of the things over the last year or so, most of the companies have invested. In our own case, we have invested heavily on moving towards passwordless. And we have invested heavily on making sure that our security is a multi-level security as well. So let's step back for a minute and talk about, because I kind of mentioned the productivity, when you think about it, the environment and the space is important. So let's step back for a minute and talk about what does a real employee experience means. To me, it's an intersection point of three major things. Starts with the physical space. And one can say, hey, you said work is not a place. But when I say physical space to me is any space. It could be your space at home. It could be a space you're using at the coffee shop, or it could be a space in the office that you are going to come in. Because I would say that coming into office is a ritual, and there is a value to come in and connect with people. We are all social animals. So it's super important that we will be coming into office, we will be interacting with people. So the physical space that we create and that we offer has to marry seamlessly into the digital space. The digital space is where the technology comes into play. How do you ensure we really are giving the experience in a location irrelevant fashion? Which means whether the person is, connecting to work from coffee shop or from home or from the office, they get the seamless experience of how they are accessing the content, how they are connecting with their colleagues. The security and performance is the same regardless of how they're coming together. The last but not least, the most important thing, in my opinion, is the culture, right? This is actually the most important thing which cements the other pieces together. This is the team norms. This is what you value as a company and what kind of environment you create for your employees so they can be at their best. So to me, really, when you bring all these three components at the right level with the right kind of overlap, you create a superior user experience. Why does that matter? When you have the best experience, you're increasing the productivity of your employees. You're increasing the engagement of your employees. When you have a highly engaged workforce, it's always been proven that you're going to have your happy customers. You're going to having a happy customers leads to a better business, right? There's always never, happy employees create happy customers. It's not always the other way around. So if you ask me personally, I would put the focus on 51% on my employees and 49% on my customers, because the employees do drive the effectiveness for our customers. So let's step back. How do we achieve this superior employee experience? I call the 4 C's of location irrelevance, superior employee experience. It starts with the first C, the connectivity. This is probably the foundational thing. What does connectivity means? The ability for the employee to connect to the enterprise regardless of where they are in a secure and a high-performing way. And in Citrix, when we looked at connectivity, we leveraged our own technologies. We used our SD-WAN technology significantly to ensure we have the ability to burst into capacity when there's a high load versus when there is a low load, to ensure that it is appropriately adjusted. And it's also kept in a way that it provides that secure tunnel that we are looking for. Not only connection is important, we also know that we used our own ADC, our application delivery controller, to ensure, because we found certain applications are used at certain time of the day very heavily versus the other time. For example, we found the financial applications are used very heavily during the course of the day versus a lot of the HR related applications. People literally used it either in the start of the day or end of the day. So one of the things we wanted to make sure is we have the ability to have resources allocated in a way dynamically through our application delivery controller, which is also managed across all our locations from the cloud using our manager in the cloud. As a company, we are a hybrid company. I have 4 data centers and I'm actually in all the public clouds today. So having our control plane for our ADCs and our ADM in the cloud really enable us to quickly manage this in a matter of minutes versus typically what would have taken a number of days. This is exactly what we did over the weekend when we decided to go from being remote to everybody being in the office, being in the office to everybody working remote over the weekend. The second C is content. Once you connect safe, it's important that you get access to the right content that you are eligible to get access to. The content could be as simple as having a file, or it could be an access to an application in the data center or in the cloud, like a SaaS application, or it could be as complicated or as full as an entire desktop that you're going to access it remotely. In our case, we use Citrix Workspace as a common place to organize and bring all these, because it's a one place to go to where you can get your content, you can get your desktop, you can get your access to your application all in one place. Not only that, we have leveraged our micro apps technology heavily to ensure that we have simplified workflows. Instead of switching between 7 different applications, people can now go to one click and get their work done in a simplified fashion. The complexity is hidden behind the scenes. Also, using user preference, we really enable organizing and automating the work. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but depending on who you are, the whole element has been tailored to your preference. The third C is collaboration, which is probably the most important C, because in today's world, nobody works by themselves. We all work in partnership with different people on our team. Most of us are part of a larger team. So when the pandemic hit, one of the things we doubled down on is enhancing the experience for our employees through, much more superior audio video conferencing technologies, sharing technologies for content, and also we introduced technologies for high collaboration environment like whiteboarding and brainstorming for larger teams in a virtual fashion. We introduced purpose-built tools that are relevant for the business to do it in a way that enhances a specific outcome. But none of this is going to yield the full potential if you don't get the fourth C into the action. I call it the fourth C really acts as a foundation for all the other 3 Cs, which is the culture, right? We talked about culture. The reason I'm bringing it again is we talked about 3 components of the 4 Cs, which is actually technology. The fourth C, which is not a technology, but it really forms the foundation on how we are enabling these capabilities, how you're training your team, how we are rolling out capabilities so it lands at the right place at the right time with the right kind of impact. For us to make sure the fourth C is successful, that's not an IT job. You all understand. It is actually the thing. It's also not HR's job alone. In my opinion, culture is something that's everybody's job. But in the context of what we are talking about, the most important thing for us is IT and HR need to be best friends. We really need to be best friends forever to ensure we are enabling our workforce to be at our best. So where do we go from there? What is the future going to look like? We actually conducted a study. And in fact, Citrix kind of said, why not talk about just next 3 years? But let's just, do a moonshot of next 15 years. In 2035, what is work is going to feel like? What is the elements that are going to drive the future of work? How do we envision work to be in 2035? And this was done in partnership with 1,000 plus employees who are individual contributors across various industries, across various geography, and also 500 plus C-suite leaders who are actually in many ways controlling the strategy of the company, et cetera. So the thing that really intrigued me is it's not just from a high-level C-level point of view or from employee. It kind of encompasses both elements of a top-down view and a bottoms-up view, and also really bringing the notion of the different geographies and the different culture. You can download the report. It's actually available. You can see the link below. It's available on our website. It's free to download. I strongly encourage, and in fact, if you're a geek like me, you will really get a kick out of it. Please do download, because it's kind of really interesting to see, something like future visioning. I enjoy these kind of things. So feel free to download. But I wanted to step back and kind of share with you a few things that came out from this report. The one thing that we found is 77%. I mean, it's not a surprise when we talk about future. You all must have guessed already what's the role of AI, what's the role of MI. So the first one that came out was 77% of the people believed AI and machine learning is going to speed up the decision making and it's going to boost worker productivity. 83% believe technology will automate the low value task and free up workers to be focused on high value tasks. 69% believe that the CEOs will not be the leader of the company anymore. They will be tandem with a AI bot or whatever the new name you want to give. And they will be partnering very closely with even having a chief AI officer who's going to be, it's kind of think about human plus machine type of a notion is how the company is going to be run. Great stats. But what's different? This leads to the question, does that mean robots are going to come and take over our world? Personally, as a technologist, I don't believe that. I really think we are going to be, of course, there is two spectrums, so I'm only expressing my viewpoint, so take it as my viewpoint. I really don't believe robots are going to take over. However, I'm a firm believer and a big proponent and advocate. AI and ML is going to make our life better, and it's also going to make us all focus on high value tasks. So let's look at the model that we looked at the spectrum, right? So if you look at the model has two axes. On the x-axis, we looked at the two spectrums. The one spectrum is AI and ML will augment workers. We call them the augmented workers. On the other end of the spectrum is it's going to replace us. It's a replaced workers. On the y-axis, we looked at an organizational construct. How organizations are going to be. Are we going to be a centralized organization or we are going to be a decentralized organization? And we really put 4 different work models that are going to evolve, and you look at it. And of course, there is belief around these different work models and where and how, and I'll share in a minute. But let's go through from the left to right, the freelance frontiers. What is the freelance frontiers really is? The belief of freelance frontiers is we are not going to have permanent employees, or rather I should say there is a small number of permanent employees the enterprises are going to have. Predominantly, it's a freelance workforce, and these are going to be specialists. Depending on the outcome we want to produce, the teams will come as a swarm and produce that outcome. And the jobs that are predominantly going to be in the enterprise are how you're going to organize these swarms, how you're going to hire, and it's mostly around managing these freelance workforce rather than really doing the work. If you move to the next quadrant, which is the platform plugins, I would say probably the platform plugins is a little bit of the darker side of saying, hey, the machines are taking over the world here, because the platform plugins truly believe AI and ML is going to replace us. We will not have a lot of jobs left over. Probably we are only going to have jobs which are specialist job, like the people who are actually training the robots, the people who are building the AI models type of things. In other words, if you're a technologist, it's kind of great because all the job you think are going to exist are predominantly technology jobs. However, I do think at some point it may, but one of the things that the industry is still struggling when it comes to AI, ML, or robotics is the digital dexterity, because they are very good in doing things which are patterned, that are deriving insights. To me, the platform plugins probably is a little bit further out because empathy is something still AI, ML, and robots can do. Let's come down one more. The automated corporation. What does this mean? So now we are shifting from people freelance to people being centrally organized and getting the work done central fashion. The automated corporations are the work model that there is going to be an extreme automation. However, that automation is managed and the goal will be established in a central fashion. In other words, it's an orchestrated extreme automation done through an enterprise-wide approach. And these are probably the area that, highly being favored by certain industries like manufacturing and highly human-intensive industries that they're looking at. Probably they're going to be an automated corporation. If we go into the last quadrant, which is the powered productive, this is the quadrant where it is actually, I call the equation as human plus machine. What does that mean? We humans become superhumans by augmenting the machine to us. This is the place where AI and ML are going to enhance the power of human by bringing things that humans don't do very well. Example, humans are not very good in looking at a diverse set of data and deriving intelligence out of it. Their machines are super good at looking at it and doing it in a matter of seconds. So how can we ensure we are bringing that intelligence that machines can derive and put it in the right places, in the right time to the humans, so the humans can be better in their decision making. The humans can be better in achieving the outcomes that we want to produce. So it all sounds good. I did mention to you that, hey, we had actually, when we sent this survey, when we did this study, we included people from both from the C-level as well as individual contributors and the worker bees as well. And obviously, when we look at the bias of how people look at this work models evolving, there's clearly two different viewpoints. And we saw the business leaders favoring the powered productives. In other words, the business leaders are believing in 15 years, we are still going to be enterprises which are centrally organized and managed, and we will use the machines to be our advantage, making humans to be as superhumans. Whereas from the individual's point of view, we saw the bias, or rather, I would say that a bit of anxiety here is things are going to go and machines are going to take over the world. I think, in my opinion, honestly, it's somewhere in between the two. I do actually feel it's probably towards human becoming superhuman, and also a combination of freelancers coming into play. Again, this is purely Meerah Rajavel's opinion, not an industry opinion, but that's kind of how I feel. But it kind of gives us a view into when we think about future, what technology can do. In my opinion, when we talk about it, technology in the future is people and technology is increasingly integrated. In the context of future of work, we have to work together, because in all honesty, our outcome together can be exponentially higher than what we can do independently. So in simple, technology needs to deliver, not demand. What does that mean? To me, as we are looking at all of this, if you don't do it right, it can create friction. If you do it right, it's going to deliver, not put the demand on the human. So it's really up to us. I mean, we have a lot of orchestration power on how this is going to unfold. And we as business leaders and technology leaders really need to ensure we are looking at it from the delivery point of view, not from a demand point of view. In closing, I just want to call out a few things. If you look at it from a future of work point of view, we have looked at productivity quite a bit, but there's one element I haven't talked about it, and I wanted to touch upon it here. And it's something that recently many of us have been in the conversation, either in your company or with your employees, with your team members, which is actually well-being. I mean, the pandemic has taught us more than ever, the individuals are not expecting us to manage their employee experience. They're really looking at business leaders and their managers and their companies to manage their life experience. What does that mean? Putting people first. People matter. At the end of the day, their emotional health, their physical health really sets a foundation for achieving the superior outcomes. So start with making sure well-being is in the center, not just looking at the productivity from the numbers only. So people matters. You're not in this alone. And I would say, if I sit here and say we have figured out the magic equation on how we are going to get there, I'm probably lying, because it's something that we are learning continuously. And probably some of you are ahead of me in certain things, and some of you are behind us in certain things. So we are all learning from each other, and we need to continue to ensure, our employees are in the center of everything that we do. Embrace the change. Change is a constant. It's the only constant in the world, right? So as we are evolving, and I'm pretty sure fast forward 12 months, there's a bunch of new changes that we need to embrace, because returning to office is not anywhere close to what we used to be 16 months back. It's going to be different. Even though we are all saying return to work, return to office, it's not going back in time. It's actually setting up the new normal is. A new normal, by definition, is going to require change. So embrace the change. Also remember, there's no one magic bullet. It's a journey, and it's multi-step journey. With that, thank you for joining this session. Really my pleasure to join you all today.